All right, I believe we're live. It has been a little while since I've been back on. I know we had made a video probably a week ago. It was pretty controversial. But before we get started on all the good things that have already happened, let's make a few introductions. My name is Jay. I am the owner of Section8Consulting.com. We work with clients all over the U.S. to help them navigate Section 8 and the system. Uh, get housing, learn about vouchers, low-income housing, tax credit properties, work with landlords as well. Been doing this roughly almost 25 years. So that being said, I'd like to get into a little mixture here because many people came here because it's a Q&A. And if you have questions about Section 8 housing, vouchers, low-income housing, tax credit, let me know. Whenever you get brave enough, comment in the comment section here. It's a live video chat. So while you guys decide what you're going to ask, if you ask anything, I'm going to go over some of the more illuminating topics that are pressing the country right now. So I want to talk to you guys, many of you which are members of our channel. I know we've got 40 to 50,000 people that watch our channel. One thing I want to talk to you guys about is going to be the emergency housing voucher. Now, there's two distinctions you want to make with that. While I wait for these questions, anytime you guys want to hop in. So during the pandemic, they had pandemic level vouchers, which in other words was funded specifically through pandemic money. And that allowed people to be able to get emergency housing voucher through the Continuum of Care program. Now, prior to that, what's always been known as emergency housing voucher was not funded that way. And so the point I'm getting to here is they're doing closeout procedures. I'm just now finding out about this, so I wanted to share that information lightly. So the closeout of the EHV program will be approaching sooner for some public housing authorities and PHAs than others. The EHV, or Emergency Housing Voucher Program, is limited to individuals and families who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence. I'm not going to say the next few words because YouTube doesn't like those words, and I don't feel like them taking the video down. Going on from there, starting in September of 2023, they started, and now they're successfully closing out vast portions of this. Now, I want to be very clear, since this is after post-pandemic, this is an attempt, I believe, to take the emergency housing voucher. And I don't think they're going, I mean, clearly it's ending, but I mean, it's not ending in the way that I believe that many of you might imagine. I think what's going to happen is it's going to be replaced with something else. Now, many of you are familiar with emergency housing voucher, which comes through the Continuum of Care program. If you don't know what that is, you might want to look it up. And in that program, they also, depending on how you score and or assessed on their application, you could receive, let's see, they have rapid rehousing for short-term individuals with no disabilities. They have permanent supportive housing for those of you with mental disabilities and other issues. And then, of course, they have the emergency housing voucher as it stands today. For that, you guys would be assessed through a testing metric, which would be called SPDAT, or SPDAT, which is your Service Prioritization Decision Assistance tool. Now, that tool is more or less a test where you're answering the questions they have, and each question you're getting right, you'll be afforded a certain number of points. And when you have enough of those points, it will pre-qualify you basically for one of the many different types of vouchers they have, including the emergency housing voucher. Now, they're not making a full disclosure when this is going to come to a complete end, but I just want to let you guys know that it sounds like the emergency housing voucher is going to be replaced with something else, obviously. Now, on the next part of the topic here, we got a comment finally. And so Cynthia Otis says, what are the rules for Section 8? Well, Cynthia Otis, to be frank with you, many of the rules, it depends on which rules you're speaking of. First of all programs, including PHAs or public housing authorities that are going to administrate federal programs, must read Title 24, which is very lengthy. Besides that, then you have your administrative plan, policies, procedures, and so on. So I don't think there's a one-liner I can give you, Cynthia, for all the rules. If you have something very specific in mind, I can attempt to try to answer that question for you. Okay. We got to keep in mind HUD and its policies and rules, or just as long as pretty much the IRS. There are telephone book rules, pages and thousands of pages covering nearly every topic you can imagine. You can also look at Title 24 of Cornell Law if you wish. Also, keep in mind that each housing authority in America, which there are probably over 4,400, are also going to have separate policies and procedures, which means the way a housing authority operates from one county to the next is going to be a little bit different each time. Okay. That's because they're adapting the funding they receive to match the local market. The local market is depressed or has other issues, and they may choose to fund and use money in a different way than a housing authority might say a mile away. That's why getting advice from a friend that lives somewhere else may not work for the area you're in. So I always tell people if you're going to deal with learning the wisdom of the system, then you better take a look at the local market and make sure you understand the policy and procedures set forth that way. So besides the EHB, since I don't really have a lot to report, I just want to let you guys know that's up and coming. I'm going to cover another topic real quick. I see you guys are commenting. I'm just warming up, guys. I've been doing this a long time, but it's been a long time since I've gotten live in a video like this. So it takes a little bit for me to kind of drum up the old personality. So another issue that came across my desk is going to be the homeless increase we saw this year. Now, while the numbers are quite big, I think that it's logical that these numbers would be at this high right now. So according to the United States government, the United States saw a 18.1% increase in homelessness this year. But there are reasons behind that, obviously. There was a dramatic rise driven by lack of affordable housing. Okay, so that's something that we have seen sustained for the last 10 years. I mean, clearly, the pandemic pushed that along. So if we had people that own properties that weren't really that well cared for, there wasn't much of an incentive for them to sell it or do anything else with it. They just kept it as a rental, right? When the pandemic hit and prices got all of a sudden, people that own these kind of crappy properties, now their properties were worth a lot more during the pandemics with that big rush of people that were paying a lot of money for everything. And so what happened is it extracted a lot of landlords that were servicing the low income, discovered through the pandemic and inflation that their properties were now worth a lot more. So they put the property on the market. So they extracted a lot of properties off the market. And then, of course, inflation affects all these things. And I'm not an economist. Let's be very clear about that. Though I do know the inside and out of Section 8 and housing and the federal system itself related to housing, I'm not an economist, so I can't really get too deep into that. So let's go on and hear the other causes. Some of you are going to like this, and some of you are not going to like it. I mean, that's the reality of some of the statistical results they're issuing here. So the lack of affordability is an obvious one. Natural disasters. We've been real driven this year. Many of you have been affected. I know a client called me, sent me a message, an email about the wildfires. Many of you were affected by floods, snow, and other things, Hell, even me, I'm down south, so we often get affected by hurricanes and windstorms, So that's another portion. Now, the next one I'm going to bring up, obviously, is going to be sensitive. I can tell you after the last video I made, I had everything short of death threats for talking about a little bit about politics. It's a very sensitive topic, but thankfully, we're not going to be talking about that. So going on from there, lack of affordability, natural disasters, and a surge in migrants. Okay. Now, let's be very clear in this video right now. I'm not here. Please don't start any drama in this channel. Okay. About Mexican people and all that stuff. You're entitled to your opinions. We don't need to go through that right now. Okay. I'm sure you'll find a platform that's appropriate for you. So if anybody here decides they need to, take over the video, I'd rather you didn't. Okay. So migrants, obviously we have migrants from everywhere. And so that did affect things. There was a large number of people that crossed borders and other things. Many more were legal, some were illegal, and so on. I don't keep up with that stuff. I just know that it has caused an effect on homelessness. So moving on from there, we had, according to this, federal tallies do say right now that they found more than 770,000 people. So just a quarter of a million short of a million people right now homeless. Now, I have to be honest with you. I know the market pretty well when it comes to homelessness and the number of people. I can tell you that number's closer to 2 million. Okay. Now, many of you are going to question my integrity on saying that, but I can tell you that we've always had almost a million or so out there that are homeless. It's just that the way they pull these statistics are a little bit tricky, because when you deal with homeless people, they don't exactly have an address. Many of them don't, and homelessness technically under federal rules may be considered sleeping in the car and other things where they don't check. So I can just say that the numbers are probably still pretty high now. Moving on from there, there was another cause, which is the soaring rents, which I believe that's hand in hand with just saying that unaffordability and inflation. So same thing. Hey, good morning, April, and how are you today? So I'm gonna comment on a few comments here. Vanessa Marie, hit the like. Thank you, Vanessa. I must be shy with pressing people to do the likes. I always remember when I was watching videos before I ever made them. I remember how annoying that one person was in those videos. He kept telling everybody to push every button in his channel, and this and that. And I've always been very shy about that, so I never tell anybody that. So I appreciate you, Vanessa, for bringing that up. So that was a little bit of news and updates. So the Q&A, I think, since I haven't been in a while, I don't have a regular audience anymore, not like I used to. I easily could have gotten several thousand to join me on a live in the old days, but these days I spend more time doing consulting work. And for those of you that have known me for quite a while or watch my other videos, I have a lot of cats, so I spend a lot of time doing things with them. I was hoping one of them would join us. I know Bunny was here earlier, so I do rescue cats. It seems like I deal with people and cats when it comes to housing. So the circumstances for the video I made earlier this week was not to fear monger or scare people. It was simply to suggest that there is a plan out there that has been presented, I think, to Mr. Trump at some point, and I think it's probably, from my understanding, a very old concept. What do I think for 2025 when it comes to housing and vouchers? Well, to be honest with you, when has Section 8 and housing ever operated very good, So I don't think that materially the last video that I made regarding the subject matter of HUD being, dissolved and all those things, that's certainly a possibility, but that takes an incredible amount of work, bipartisanship, politics, and other things. So I don't think we're going to see an immediate effect, but I do think we're going to see some changes, because anytime you have a big change of presidency and other things, there has to be changes. And beyond that, I think that we are kind of operating out of our budget anyway. So it preferably, I'd love to see a new concept, a new idea, from both parties or either party concerning housing and what can be done about that. What can we do to put people back to work that can work? What can we do to help those that may not be able to work? That's the situation, is getting people housed. Whether it's your grandmother or whether it's your neighbor, So in the current environment, it's very risky. Nobody likes the idea right now, and I knew that was coming. This is it's been a tough couple of years. So it's not about the core of politics and politicians. It's the core of people. We have a division of people that may not be doing the right thing and are trying to use the system, and then they overburden it, right? And then we have another half of those people that are truly disabled and have real issues, which are friends and family members and so on, that need this. So we have to consider, how do we get rid of the con artist, and how do we get in, address the ones that need to be put there? How do we run the system more efficiently? I'm a big advocate of ending this Section 8 myself, okay? And I'm a consultant, but I don't mean it ending it in so much terms of just never doing nothing else. What I mean is, we designed a system 80 years ago. It doesn't work. It never has. It's so convoluted that people have to call my office to get advice and even get around some of the rules and policies. Furthermore, the people that tend to administrate these programs through these public housing authorities, I got to tell you, the personnel is colorful. You would have more. I think that you would probably have a better conversation with a prostitute on Third Street than you would with most caseworkers at a housing authority. We're hiring people that have attitudes and low educational level, and we're putting them in charge of decision making over people that are vulnerable. That's a big problem, you know. Housing authorities are privately owned for the most part, are owned by the cities. You know, they're not. The housing authority is not owned by HUD. Many of which we discussed last year. We did videos, and 3 of them that were insolvent. I mean, literally, they were running it like a piggy bank. They burned up all the money, they stole all the money, and then when that last copper penny was blown, by the time HUD realized what had happened, it was already too late. The housing authority was absolutely broken, and then of course you have the Fed storming the door. This happened 9 times last year, probably more than that. That was just as many as I could put the videos out for. So we need to take a more business approach to this. There has to be a system where we're looking at housing as dividing it into 2 different systems. One where if you need help on a temporary basis, then hey, you worked all your life and you've had an event in life that's made you homeless. Maybe, you know, a hurricane or something happened and you got blown out and now you've got nothing and now you're homeless. You need to be able to use Section 8 to get back on your feet. That's good. Okay. And then there should be a system in place for that. But I think that we currently have is with HUD, they have created so many policies. We've got so many people with their hand in a cookie jar. All these programs and nonprofits and allowing people to monetize housing authorities. In other words, they open their doors in order to earn money and they hire the trashiest people they can find for the lowest wage with an attitude to run those places. So they further victimize the seniors and disabled and all the different deceptions that go on. Now, I'm not suggesting every PHA operates that way, but what we need is a business-minded approach to this. If we're going to allow housing and vouchers or any type of system take place, then we need to get rid of this antiquated system that we have in place. This whole thing needs to be trashed. It'd be better, really, in my opinion, to let the actual person that needs housing manage the housing themselves. We spend billions of dollars running all this trash through housing authorities. Look, they're good paper pushers, right? If we unconvolute this, then it would mean that, look, if you qualify for it, you receive direct deposit cash money. The first time you fuck it up and you go out there and you spend that money on anything but that rent, and you can't prove where every copper penny went, don't ever ask about it again. You're done. We don't need housing authorities and all the other drama. Okay. I mean, maybe they serve a purpose, but I think they would better serve a purpose in all this other stuff that we blow money on, like neighborhood enrichment. Who gives a fuck about that? People need housing. Why are we enriching the neighborhood? You know what I'm saying? So housing authorities suck up part of the money and all these diversion programs. And then we have HUD home ownership, and then we have family self-sufficiency. And then we have to have all these jailers run it, you know. Look, people know how to rent. They learned that when they turned 18. People don't need to be micromanaged. It's simple. If you can't establish where the money's going to pay rent, I mean, that's, to me, it seems like we should unconvolute the whole thing and just qualify people for it. And then if they qualify, they either have a time limit because they're not disabled and can work. And then the ones that cannot, then there has to be something in place there. Maybe we need to increase Social Security taxes to cover part of that. But I mean, I don't think that we really need to actually increase anything. If we cut out all the housing authorities and all these additional programs and just issued money for rent for those that absolutely qualify under federal rules and let them manage it, then there's $33 billion back in your pocket. You know, we're micromanaging something that's wildly unnecessary. Okay, simple as that. And that'd be my hope with that. It would also remove all this discrimination because the landlord isn't going to know where that money's from. It's direct deposited. If the client makes a mistake and they decide they're going to go out and go and smoke crack or go drink with the money and not pay the rent, well, that's the last time it ever happens. And then they're banned for life. And so this would be a much better, more dignified way to handle this. Now, Section 8 housing and vouchers is not an entitlement, okay? When you went out there from the day you were working age from 18, it's no different than you received on a Social Security check or anything else, okay? You paid into a system and now you're utilizing it. It's just that this particular thing, Section 8, unlike nobody walks to the mailbox in shame when they receive their Social Security check, okay? Nobody's shameful about that. It's the stigma behind Section 8. The easy way to remove it is simply we don't need to call it Section 8 anymore. We just need to create a different program in place to give people the money to be able to pay rent, cut out all these other people that chew up roughly half of all that money. We're talking $12 billion. This is like the mafia. We're spreading this shit all over the neighborhood. We're employing a whole housing authorities that do nothing but push paperwork and talk to people badly. What's the fucking point in that? And then, a 3-tier system, emergency housing vouchers for those that are emergency funds for those that need it temporarily. Then you have a little bit moderate term, and then there'd be possibly a work program put in place where you have to show us, hey, you know what, you're trying to get back out there and get back on your feet. You've had an incident in life. You're going to show us that you can recover, and then you move on. And for those that need it long term, then we can pair that up possibly with funding from the feds. And the goal, I think, would be to reduce all this loan money. So that's my idea. Clearly it's not well scheduled out, but I'm looking at the immensity of all of this and all the subjects we've covered in Title 24, policies, procedures. And I'm thinking all these telephone books and stacks of paperwork and all these people involved, all these different, we need FHE, we have FHEO, we have HUD, we have all these different investigative units because people are discriminated because they try to use their voucher and this and that. Well, if they had cash, we would have no need for half this stuff, right? And also, you don't need anybody to investigate discrimination because if the feds are paying the client in cash, they're no longer a Section 8 recipient. It means it's the client's problem to take that landlord that discriminated and then take them to court. So we would release, 90% of the blown money just by letting grown adults do what they've always done. Use money to pay rent. So moving on from there. One thing that I do see right now is we're seeing an uptick in the number of housing authorities that are have open waiting lists, which is good. And that means, the philosophy there is during the summer when demand's high, if you have a housing authority, you want to make money, the best way to do that would be close when everybody needs something and then open when nobody needs anything, right? Open up during the winter and then have an open waiting list all the way through probably spring, when nobody wants these vouchers, and then close your housing authority during the summer. That's a great way to not have to earn a paycheck. Let's just be honest, let's just call bullshit where it is. That's why they do that. And look at how many housing authorities have an open waiting list. They're all popping open right now. It's amazing, isn't it? I tell my clients that every year, but it's true because human nature does drive us to want to move and do all of our activities during the summer. And so you can tell you housing authorities follow suit on that. So I think it's going to be an interesting year. Clearly, Mr. Trump is going to take office, but you know what? He has bigger fish to fry than worry about little shit with HUD and Section 8, to be honest with you, okay? He's got lots of issues on his plate that he's going to be dealing with, and I don't think his big focus is really going to be on Section 8 and housing. I think that probably he's going to stay pretty close to the budget we have. There'll probably be some cuts because he couldn't possibly be the man he is without doing a little bit of cutting, right? Do I think anybody's going to lose their vouchers and so on? No, not unless you do something that violates the law. Now there is a possibility, a very small one, that things could go wrong, And he does make big moves. Out of all presidents I've seen in my lifetime, this is the one man out of all the many that I've seen that when that man says he's going to do something, he'll do it. He's highly predictable in that nature. And when he gets burned, he'll burn you back. So, as far as I can tell, there were recommendations given to him regarding a 2025 plan. But I also know how Mr. Trump thinks to some degree. And he does what he wants to do, period. He don't give a damn. He'll agree with you over dinner, and he'll do something different the minute he walks out of there. That's just how he is. He straight lets you know he's a boss. That's just how he is. And I don't think that's a negative thing in terms of this, but I think the bigger fish he's going to be frying has to do with the immigration and other issues. So I think that it's going to be a difficult year, and I think that there are going to be some cuts and some changes. Okay. I think the best result here is we all keep our mind on adapting to those changes. Okay. Life's full of that. Life, adversity is something you need to face head on. And when you're throwing a curveball, then rather than bitch and moan about it, then you need to sit there and logically think, okay, how can I adapt to this? This is what everybody that struggles with money and housing and vouchers does. There's nobody better equipped on the planet than people that are low income to deal with adversity, because you're used to change and difficulties. In other words, you survive it much easier than a suburban soccer mom would be probably shocked. So I think right now, for those of you that are in pursuit or in thought of getting housing and vouchers and so on, you should proceed, because January, February, March, and April are great months for this, the best months of the year. As we get closer approaching summer, it's going to reach an epic height. In other words, demand will become extreme, and it will become an impossibility to almost October. And for those of you that are having a hard time navigating the system, reach out to our office. This is what I do. Okay. I realize that the services that I offer are not inexpensive. I get that. Okay. But, if you've tried everything and it hasn't, if your own efforts have not yielded results you need, and you're still sitting on a dead waiting list for 10 years, then maybe it's time to reconsider. Okay. Now, moving on from that, I think the last thing I want to encourage you guys to do is come and visit on our next video in about a day or two. We'll be talking about NACA, N-A-C-A. Now, this program is an alternative to HUD homeownership. And why am I bringing that up? It wouldn't matter if they dissolved HUD or not. NACA is a great program. It's one of the most proven ones out there. And it was actually created for African American individuals to be able to find an affordable way to get into a mortgage, and be able to go into home ownership. Okay. So this doesn't involve a voucher, but they're highly successful. So we've been discussing that, and they do service other people, just more than just African-American people, but that is by large, the largest portion of it. And that's why it was created, to help African-American people in the beginning, is because all the difficulties in the U.S. with prejudicial behavior. Over time, I find that that's getting better, but it's not getting better as quickly as I'd like it to when it comes to other things. All right, so let's go on here to the comment section. I see many of you started warming up and commenting. Thank God, because I had to talk for 40 minutes to get you guys to say something. All right, so April, good morning. What's a waiting list in Florida Section 8? Well, I'm not quite sure what you're asking me there. I'm pretty sure there are waiting lists. For those that don't know, if you type make this note if you can, or at least remember this, go to affordablehousingonline.com and then click on the open waiting list there. Now, for those that don't know, Go Section 8 used to be where you went to look for properties. That merged with Affordable Housing Online. Now, those two are the same thing. And that company is federally subsidized. In other words, for the most part, you can trust them. They're not a scammy website. And on there, they do keep track of housing authorities. Now, they have the cooperation of roughly 40 or 50% of the housing authorities in America. They don't have them all. Let me give you some other advice. I had a client that emailed me today and said, hey, you know what? I reviewed the entire state of Illinois, and there's only one open waiting list. Look, guys, housing authorities, again, they are not HUD. They're not federal employees. And with little budget they have, I can assure you, with many of the websites I've visited that are 20 years old, the reason they don't ever take it for granted that the housing authority that's local to you says they're closed or open, you need to verify that. Many of them can't even afford IT. In other words, internet technician to come over and change the website to say it's open. I mean, it's pretty bad. Okay, so never just take it for granted that something's closed or open. Always call to verify that, because they may not have somebody from the computer department come over for a week or two. Man, since the pandemic, what I've been seeing is used to housing authorities would collect vouchers over a course of 10 years. They collect funding, right? And then they would release a wild amount of people. I never understood that. Why would you collect millions and millions of dollars, right? And then have 30,000 people apply and then flood the market, which you already know doesn't have enough housing. Now, what should be happening is, as the funding starts trickling in, they should be opening the waiting list for a couple of days, close it once a month. That way, the local community and the landlords can support the number of people flooding the market. But housing authorities have always made it their job to open when nobody wants a voucher and close when everybody needs one. Instead of actually doing things that would be logical and helpful, they do shit backwards, like I just suggested. Let's have 50,000 people apply. Let's flood the market. We know that probably 98% of people are going to fail to even find anything because we flooded the market with people running around with vouchers. You know, it's just so in your face, the misconduct with this. I almost could say, in my opinion, that housing authorities serve no other purpose than to grant misery. Okay. But I do have to say, I've talked with many housing authority employees over the years. There are some housing authorities that, by moral rule, operate extremely well. Okay, boy, but the ones that run badly, I can tell you what, it's like walking into the Twilight Zone. They're in there just doing any old damn thing, talking to people like they're trash. I mean, it's unbelievable some of the things that I see. I had one housing authority. They tried to tell me that a federal law didn't exist. That's the level of depravity and ignorance. That when your own employees running a housing authority deny absolute culpable deniability that these federal rules exist. These are the ones that you love to take to court because they're so stupid they don't even realize they're fixing to get sued, and they're fixing to lose their home in that lawsuit, and they're still in denial because they're so used to operating the housing authority like the Wild West. Just like those other housing authorities I mentioned prior in the video where they were insolvent for stealing all the money, hiring contractors, fudging paperwork, and then, of course, some of the other things that they do. But I'm not going to get deeply into that because it's always upsetting to talk about that. All right, so moving on from there, Marie Chudley says R. Vanessa Marie, absolutely. Auntie April, is there an easier way to find out which ones will allow 2-bedroom? Well, depends on how you're asking that question. If you're suggesting that you apply at a housing authority, which ones would grant you a 2-bedroom for no good reason? None. Okay. But I'm not sure I understand the context of your question. If you could be a little bit more specific. Abel Lincoln, I agree with you 100%. Thank you. Vanessa Marie says 100%. NLO, Section 8 gives the landlord and their agents authority over the family to purchase the property in their name without informing them. Well, I appreciate you sharing your opinion in that matter. I don't agree or disagree. Marie Tully, hallelujah, I'm not losing mine. No way, no how. That's a good way to keep things in mind. Jill Jackson, yes, it's expensive. Vanessa Marie, you have to get out of the system. You were made for more. Well, Marie, that certainly is encouraging to hear something like that, but there are many people that are in wheelchairs that can't just go leave and become a lawyer and other things. Okay, there's lots of people that have problems. I mean, I think that's what people fail to realize. We've let the TV and these in the news poison our minds to what things are. Look at the 80s, a perfect example. everybody's African American and having babies. There's nothing could be farther from the reality. The reality was in the 80s, the biggest recipient of vouchers and housing were white people. It's just that kind of prejudicial poisoning by the news and other things. And, they exemplify certain news stories, and so we spend the next 50 years trying to unwind that garbage, that kind of thinking. Look, people go through a painful amount of time and effort to get vouchers. The last thing anybody's going to do is lease an apartment, simply go smoke crack and do all the crazy shit. Nobody's really has that in mind. Would you want to sit there and wait 8 years, 10 years, and the first thing in your mind is how can I destroy my landlord's property? It's just not even logical. But that's the kind of shit that the news have you believe. Now, are there circumstances where that's happened? Absolutely. You get a desperate landlord that doesn't want to use common sense and rents to any old fool because he's got to pay his mortgage and he's made some bad choices. Now he's got to rent out his little apartment, and he's in such a hurry he forgot to check any credentials. Well, you know what? That's toodles, man. Tough luck. You get what you get when you act like a fool. Vanessa Marie, you have to get okay. Angela, force tenants to move out once their annual increase. That's true, Angela, but I think that possibly that there's truth in that. Absolutely, Angela, but I think there's also truth in the fact that there's a lot of inflation. And I think that, and I can say this because I work with a lot of ethical landlords, and I can tell you that they're being pressured too, heavily. So I think there could be a balance. Now, I don't know your personal circumstances. You could be very much 100% correct, but I would say consider all options with that. Erica B, thank you. You're most welcome. Love Logic. Hello, can I use my Section 8 voucher to become a homeowner? So they have the HUD ownership program. So Love Logic, I would advise that you reach out to your local housing authority, give them a ring, and then see if they have the HUD homeownership program. If they have that and you had your voucher for a minimum of a year, then you may request to participate in that program. If they don't have it, then you may need to move that voucher to a different county or another place in the country where that program is available. Okay. 20 years ago, that program was all over the U.S. with most housing authorities. Over time, they've been winding it down. And the main reason is housing authorities have found that it's an intensive amount of work for them to be involved in. And so I think that, I hate to say this, I really do, and I'm making an accusation. But if you look at the level of work that's involved in dealing with a client that wants to purchase a home and manage that, I think that it's in the interest of the housing authority to see most people fail or make it nearly impossible. And I do see the consequence of what I'm saying now, because I've watched many people go through the whole program and then get failed at the very end. Okay. But it's still a really good option for those that are really wanting to do it. But I must advise, if you're going to participate in HUD ownership program, you better be dead serious. You need to be stable. Every day needs to be the same. There's a lot of responsibility. There's a lot of classes. There's a lot involved in that. And it's not one of those things where, you're collecting Beanie Babies kind of deal. You you have to stick with this, okay? So Love Logic, check it out and see if they offer it. If they do, see if you can sign up with it. And many times the HUD ownership program is paired with Family Self-Sufficiency Program, which, in my opinion, that program does a lot of things. But the main thing that I find that it's useful for family self-sufficiency is the fact that they escrow money. In other words, let's say the rent's $1,000 and your rent portion is $300. They dollar match that $300, so that $300 now becomes $600 thrown in escrow, and that can happen from day one to up to 5 years, which it's really 401. They're dollar matching, right? And so it's a great way. So not only would you be participating in a circumstance where a housing authority over a course of time would allow you to use your voucher to literally pay equity into a home for you, but family self-sufficiency, And one of the critical parts of it would allow you to dollar match every dollar put into rent up to a certain maximum per year. Okay. And I'm not going to get into that because they do often change the amounts which they can dollar match depending on it, and the rules can be very different. And I swear, if I had lined up 25 housing authorities in the same room, they would all disagree on how that program works. Poor administration. You know that person that talked to you badly at the housing authority. Now, can you imagine that person being an astronaut or running things? These are the same people that are involved in HUD homeownership program, and so you have to question things sometimes. Now, for those of you that want to get your foot in the door and get out there, I'm going to do something to help you guys out. But I want y'all to save this video, okay? You don't need to like me or subscribe or none of that. I'm going to issue you a link, a government link that will allow you to see every housing authority in America. That's going to save you a bit of time, okay? And I'm also going to set you up with several different operational manuals. Let me tell you something, guys. In this, when you're operating in a convoluted system like Section 8, right? It's 80 years, just like a nasty cake. There was a cake baked 80 years ago that keeps slapping icing on it and the core is rotten, okay? Always has been. So the knowledge is power through this. If you allow yourself to deal with the housing authority and its employees, okay, and they don't operate in an ethical way or their employees don't care, and you don't understand the rules of the game, then you're going to get burned, okay? How do I know that? I receive thousands of calls every year. So being able to understand federal policy, codes, regulation, operations, procedures, and policies don't just educate you. It isn't just boring stuff. It allows you to operate at the same level that they do. And trust me, most housing authorities, lower tier employees, have never read most of it. But what it does is that knowledge empowers you because it gives you a lot. It weaponizes your case against anybody operating below the federal rules, including your landlord, a bad employee at the housing authority, and so on. You cannot simply subject yourself to participating in a program and then allow yourself to get victimized because you willfully don't want to understand what the rules are. You must know these things, okay? We have to keep checks and balances in the system so that it's fair for everybody. And frankly, my opinion of Section 8 as a whole and as a consultant is it's a game. When you go out there and the housing authority tells you, hey, we're running a lottery. Look, when I go to the gas station and buy a lottery ticket, is it not a game? Okay, a very rigged game. If you're going to play to win, okay? That's my philosophy here. I'm saying play to win, not be unethical, not be immoral, not lie, cheat, or steal. But what I'm saying is if the system is broke, then you should be using your wisdom through its policies and rules. Now, nobody's going to blame you if you can identify different ways to further, your cause to be able to get vouchers and other things, because that's just part of being intelligent, is that you're able to jump through the loopholes. They don't want to change them. That's their problem. It's a big part of my job is looking at how can we take an ordinary client and prevent them from having to sit there on a waiting list for 10 or 15 years. Well, there's lots of ways you can kind of exploit the system because it's poorly managed, it's poorly written, and it's poorly administrated, right? Now, who can blame me for wanting to help anybody that way? So I'm going to add those links in there because this is going to give you an opportunity to be able to see the real rules, okay? The housing authority will keep you barefooted and pregnant if it can. And I hope that didn't offend anybody, but I think it's a really good example of what happens when you get yourself indentured by the housing authority. The minute, when you don't know the rules, the minute you sass, they're going to warn you like a little girl, like a little child, will put your ass out and take your voucher. Sass one more time. See my point? Or there's retaliatory action. I know that because I get people calling all the time. And the reason I'm bringing this up so much is because it's over half my cases. So I'm betting in my mind right now that half of you that have vouchers could agree with what I'm saying. But let's talk on something a little bit more pleasant. All right, Angela, there's not enough oversight. Amen. Erica says, thank you. Well, logic, how can these in the Section 8 voucher become a homeowner? We address that. Angela, that would be cool if there were a course to become a Section 8 consultant. Do you have a course like that by chance? I don't personally have a course for it. You might check on Google to become a HUD consultant if you wish. Karma Williams, I'm going to start an LLC. How would that affect my voucher? Well, nobody, you know what? Having a voucher and owning a small business, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? But that goes back to the whole premise or moral set that you should be ashamed that you're somehow abusing the system because you run a business. Lots of people that are low income may be doing cutting hair, doing braids, making crafts and ducks and all that. So it's not going to affect it. What affects your housing is whether or not you're making too much money or you're making too little money, okay? Whether you're telling the truth or whether you're not telling the truth and things like that, okay? So you having an LLC isn't going to matter so much. And, you know, you can keep the housing authority apprised because part of your HAP contract, in order, you know, for you to use that voucher is to be report incomes. You know, if you're going to run your LLC, then do so. But do understand the more you make, the less they're going to pay and so forth, okay? So just remember to be genuine and be honest and keep your housing authority updated as requested by HAP contract. Love Logic just subbed. I appreciate you. Well, thank you. I don't get appreciated that much. My lips are so dry right now. All right, so I think, guys, you should. I think for those of you that are considering housing in Section 8, you should get out there. So the last thing I'm going to do before I wrap up this video is I want to discuss some options across the board for those of you that don't know a lot about housing in Section 8. You're sitting there quietly listening. First thing, if you're going to get housing vouchers or any type of housing, the first stop you may have is going to be your local housing authority. Okay, that housing authority is usually going to present a housing choice voucher if you qualify for it. And then they have what they call project-based housing, which means with the housing choice voucher, they issue the voucher, which is your request for tenancy, and you take that little piece of paper with you and you go and find your property, live where you wish or want to. Now, the housing authority, when they have project-based housing, now we've all heard things on TV, but let's talk about this honestly. That is when the housing authority doesn't just grant you, qualify you to be able to utilize funding, but they also become your landlord. It's a terrible idea. Don't ever make somebody in charge of both your financials as well as your housing, because what you're doing is you're making a terrible mistake. Because if the housing authority is not a good one, I just don't think project-based housing is usually a good idea, but many people have been able to make it work. So that's your first stop, housing choice voucher. Now, under that, just to be clear, guys, there are many programs that run under that, so you can qualify in many ways. Many of you have heard of Section 811, you know, for those that are 18 to 61 that are disabled. And for those of you that are 62 and older, Section 202. And when we talk about sections, we're talking about subsections the same way the IRS does. So the IRS has their codes, federal regulation, and so does HUD. Now, under Title 24, you'll find that 811 and 202 address funding levels for subsidies, not vouchers, which allow funding for those that are disabled that meet those age qualifications through a subsidized tax credit property, not a voucher. Now, moving on from the housing authority, we can move into lower tier programs. Oh boy, I'll tell you what, I had to get some chapstick. So lower tier programs would be when you deal with the emergency housing voucher, rapid rehousing, and permanent supportive housing. Now, many of you think there's only one place you can go and one way to do this to get voucher, but that's simply untrue. If you're experiencing a situation where you may become homeless, or you're facing an emergency or a crisis in your life, or maybe the fires blew through California and burned your house down, then you could apply through Continuum of Care program, which is federally funded, and it issues vouchers too. But most of you don't even know that exists. The Continuum of Care program, what it does, rather than have you fill out an application initially, they will verbally assess you, ask you questions. And on the basis of your answers, they'll determine whether or not your answers earn enough points. So if they ask you 35 questions and each question is worth between 1 and 4 points, then at the end, they're going to feed that information into a system called HMIS, which is the Homeless Information Management System. Now, I know pride is going to grab many of you and go, oh, well, I'm not homeless. I'm too good for that. I might be busted and broke, but I'm not, damn it, I'm not going to say anything about no homelessness. Look, be smart, okay? You're already dealing with a tough system. Any opportunity to lend it to you on the short term or long term, never let your pride get in front of you, okay? So if you are a person, a younger individual that has reached a crisis and you can come out of it, then you'll probably qualify for rapid rehousing. And that'll be a circumstance where they're going to pay a portion of your rent over a duration of time. And a great example is it may be a minimum of 3 months and it can be a maximum of 2 years. Now they'll start you all big time. So what if your rent's $1,000 first couple of months? They'll pay that 1,000 next month, 1,000, and then all of a sudden it's 900 and it keeps degrading. So it's like a little bomb and eventually it blows up and you should be back on your feet. Rapid rehousing is appropriate for those in a crisis and that are going to be coming out of it. Permanent supportive housing is going to be a service that's more close to Section 811 and 202 when you deal with seniors or those that are disabled, because permanent supportive housing affords more wraparound resources like Meals on Wheels. You can speak with counselors and so on. Now, again, this is optional. You don't have to accept to do any of that stuff. You can just simply accept the housing, it comes in the form of properties which are not project based. So you can have permanent supportive housing, or you can have a circumstance where they issue funding or money in order to pay rents, and then they offer the additional supportive part or the wraparound resources on the side. That's pretty good, especially for those of you that experience mental health issues and sometimes you're there and sometimes, you're having a bad day. Well, get it? Now, many of you, I think all of you probably heard about the emergency housing voucher. It's probably the golden goose, right? Housing authorities for a very long time were the people that administrated or controlled that. And in some cases, they still do, okay, in the more rural areas of the country. But the emergency housing voucher at present, they moved a lot of that to the continuum of care program. So in other words, they want it to be a housing first program to help you out. It's surprisingly easy to qualify for. And but we did also discuss earlier in the video, and I brought those notes. They're doing a closeout on that, and I'm really trying to get more information regarding that matter because I don't know what specific part of that they're closing out and what they're going to be converting to. We can't just simply end something without any further explanation. So I do some digging around. So I'm bad about dropping a bomb and not having all the answers, especially on news. So hopefully you'll accept me on that one. So there's 3 vouchers there: rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, emergency housing voucher. So now we have the housing authority with the housing choice voucher. We have the housing authority with project-based housing. And then we went over to COC with rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing, and emergency housing voucher, and possibly shelter plus programs as well. Okay. So that's what 6. Now, moving on from there, we have another tier or housing system in place, which would be subsidies. Now, look, guys, the internet, because they love keywords, landlords love to use keywords. I'm going to tell you this right now. Affordable housing, low-income housing, subsidies are all the same damn thing. They just have different words they like to use for this stuff, but it's all the same thing. It's an agreement where a landlord decides to participate and receive tax credits, okay, in order to allocate a certain number of rooms or apartments within his property. So as an example, a tax credit property would be a circumstance where maybe a landlord owned 50 units and he decides he'd like to get some tax credits, okay, some breaks on his taxes. So he decides to engage in this agreement, and then he will allocate, 5 or 10 of those units. So that it started with 50, and he may allocate 5 or 10 of them, and that would be the trade-off in order for him to get the tax credits. Now, that can be worked many different ways, but I'm just trying to give you kind of a clean example of that. I'm gonna jump over here to the comments because now finally you guys are warmed up after all this time. Thank God. I wish I had done this in the beginning. All right, so let's see here. I'm trying to find a. Okay, I found it. Tanya, I believe is how you say this. Will my current housing authority accept billing from receiving housing authority if the new housing voucher is higher? Well, first of all, I can't tell you whether or not a housing authority that you're anticipating on going to is going to do the billing or absorbing, but I can tell you statistically what happens most often is housing authorities for your first year when you move or port, typically they're just going to bill on that, okay? And if you make it that year on the billing, then they'll typically switch you over and absorb you. In other words, they will kill the billing where you just came from, and then they'll ask the request that you be absorbed by them, and that will relinquish the responsibility of collecting money from another county that you used to live at. So that's not much of an answer, but that's somewhat. So okay, now you're talking about the value of the voucher itself. So their calculation of how much money can be spent. Well, to be frank with you, you're going to be assessed on the merits of that local community. So when you're at this housing authority and you're requesting or reporting to go to another housing authority, they're going to reevaluate that because the market's going to be different for rents. And so I think in that circumstance, it's going to change for sure. Will it be the same or a specific amount that you already have your mindset on? Probably not. Okay. So whenever you attempt to port, then what's going to happen is the rent may go up or down. So you should probably get ready for that. I always tell people, look, when you port from one place to another, don't think your $2,000 voucher, your big fancy voucher here is going to translate into the new county. If the new county is on a smaller budget and has cheaper properties, then you're probably looking at a deficit a little bit. Okay. So there's going to be some changes, though I cannot give you the amount with any accuracy. Okay. Tis says, what's the difference between HCB and EHB? Well, a housing choice voucher allows you the choice of picking a property that you wish to go to. Well, you know what? Let's do this basically. The emergency housing voucher from 0 to 60 is about 60 days to get. Okay, about 60 days. The housing choice voucher, well, that can be 8 months to 15 years. It depends on a whole lot of things. Beyond that, the emergency housing voucher is issued by the continuum of care program, and the housing choice voucher is issued by the public housing authority, and it's going to be issued on the basis of what they have funding for. Here's a great example of that. Let's say the housing authority has $1 million for domestic violence. It has $2 million for homeless, $4 million for disability. When you apply at a housing authority and you're hoping to be at the top of that list, the more times you're able to pull from different fundings or strings of funding, the more opportunity is there. So what I'm going to tell you in this circumstance will be, it really depends on how they're funded. Auntie April, waiting to add my college son to the voucher, but only will allow one bedroom. Well, I think that what you're discussing now is going to be what we call accommodations and modifications under Title 24. And that's where we're seeking a higher rent or a lower rent or an extra bedroom or a modification. And I think that don't take that as a firm thing, that they want to allow it. It just means that you haven't substantially proved any case in which would force them to give that to you. Remember when we was speaking earlier, I don't know if you were present at that time, knowledge is power, understanding modifications and accommodations and understanding how to write those requests and compel the housing authority to cooperate would allow something like that. It's something our office does for clients all the time. Now, we're not successful all the time. Some housing authorities will fight it. They're like an insurance company. They'll deny you 3 times. But understanding the rules in which you play by. That's the wisdom in this. A lot of you guys are just writing sympathy letters or requesting things. You're writing to your doctor. Look, your doctor writing a letter requesting additional rents or additional bedroom. Look, that isn't worth anything. The housing authority's policy towards that is you have to demonstrate a day-to-day activity showing a nexus. Okay, a nexus, an actual connection to why. Okay, so that means when you're formulating letters to a housing authority, which is going to be reviewed likely by an attorney or a medical doctor, you have to show that nexus, which means stating the top part of the request would be, this is what I'm asking for. Part two would be, this is why I need it. This is my typical day. Here is hour by hour, minute by minute, what's going on. This is why I'm needing this. And then, step three would be demonstrating what would happen if you weren't granted that. And then always find the fourth is the most lovely one. That's where you threaten them with federal rules. If you were to not acknowledge this or violate the 2008 Disability Act by denying this request, there would be consequences. And then, of course, supporting evidence. If you were an attorney, you would have case law, but in this circumstance, you would want to back your conversation with titles and acts or code of federal regulation. A lot of you guys are writing goodwill letters, and it's so funny to the housing authority because that's a joke to them. This really needs to be in a professional format. You really need to have a good understanding. So what I'm saying here is a good step for you would be to review accommodations and modifications and its procedures, both through Title 24 and as well as doing open public requests to the PHA and demanding that they turn over their policies, procedures, and administrative plan. Now, they're not going to like that because they're going to know for sure you fixing to light the building on fire. Because anybody smart enough to ask for that kind of information, they're wondering what you're up to. It's simple. You're trying to play the game to win. Okay, so moving on from there, Emperor Rex. I like that name. So I'm gonna Emperor Rex. You win the interesting name of the day, and I do that in almost every video. Our housing community is being made way for the new. They say they can come back when furnished building can take 5 years. Our lease states they are special deposits. Can one claim that and enforce? Emperor Rex, your dialogue there is a bit broken up, so I don't understand truly the context of that. You may need to be able to reach out to me. You may need to reach out to my office so I can figure out what the world is going on there, okay? Tanya says, thank you. You're most welcome. Tanya, let me know if I'm saying that right because I'm probably way off. If that's not your name, I apologize. I certainly don't want to offend anybody. And vice versa. If the new housing authority's voucher is higher and the current one's lower, the main thing is with the vouchers, when you're going from one place to another, you're going to be reassessed all the way. I mean, they're going to look at your incomes and everything. They've been looking at you're moving or you're getting a new job, you have a new income. And so you're going to be requalified to match their market, not the other one. That's why I always tell people all the perk bells and whistles, extra rooms, and all the other good stuff you got that housing. When you move, that doesn't mean that's going to work out the next housing, though. They may decide to trim the fat. Remember, it's all about budget. And so it's good to open up a dialogue with the boarding PHA. And many of them already know what they're going to do before they're going to do it. You just got to be diplomatic in the way that you talk with them. It'll help you. Vanessa Marie, hit the like. Thank you, Miss Vanessa. She has been a champion in my live video today. Ogla Jean, second interesting name of the day. I like that. And I probably said that wrong. If it's not Ogla, I apologize. I've done it again. I have this form of dyslexia, I think, with names. Thank you for the updates. My question is, how do you find housing where landlords get tax credits? Oh, subsidized properties. Affordablehousing.online.com is usually the best way. And just Google affordable housing or low-income housing. Now, I know that sounds pretty arbitrary to say something stupid, but the main thing there is there's not like a national list of those, but technically when you do call places and they market themselves as low income and all that, do check to make sure that they are a LITCH qualified property, LITCH. But affordable housing online is likely to have the biggest pool of properties across the U.S. Available to you that way. Okay. Auntie April says, thank you so much because I'm disabled and it would be so helpful. I'm glad to hear that. It's always exciting when I can help. Emperor Rex, pertaining to their lease. I see. Well, guys, it's been a fabulous 1 hour and 4 minutes, and my lips drying out several times. I think I need a break. This is the longest video I've made in a long time, but it's really a joy to get back and talk to you guys. Let you guys shake me down, see how much I know, and I think at this point we've all established I do understand the system as a whole. If you guys are struggling and you have questions or challenges out there with your landlord, the housing authority, or other problems, or you're seeking housing or a voucher, and your efforts have not yielded the result you're looking for, you can always reach out to our company at www.section8consulting.com. Though it's not free, I've been able to produce some really good results for almost all my clients over the years. And we've been featured in many publications out there. But that's not what's important. I mean, what's important is anytime you can do something better, okay? Because there's always a hard way and there's an easy way. And that's what it comes down to for a lot of my clients. Will you choose to do this the hard way or will you do it the easy way? I've made a career of trying to shorten the path for many of you. And try to cut the fat and figure out what you qualify for and unconvolute, because really the reality of my job is not about being a consultant. It's unrigging the system to work for you appropriately in an appropriate amount of time. Okay, that's all that I'm doing is I'm unrigging that system, walking you through the loopholes. And hey, any day Congress wants to hold session and change the rules, I'm fine to do so. But until they clean up those nasty little holes that allow us to operate a little bit quicker, then that'd be my job, is to do it as clever as I can to get clients where they need to be, housing and so on. If you're a landlord and you're out there and you're struggling to figure out whether or not you want to participate and accept Section 8 vouchers, I would tell you, forget everything that you watched on TV in the 80s, okay? It's a different system. There are a lot of wonderful people. If you need help or you need a consultant to help you out, give our office a call. We'll be happy to run you through the system and then kind of talk about all the things that need to happen. And we work with a couple hundred landlords every year. And those of you that are seeking, you've got your voucher and you're looking for a property, I posted 6 different properties over the past 2 weeks, okay? So we had a lot of landlords reach out to us. We make a video and we feature their property and so on. I receive no money for that, okay? I make the video for free for those guys. Now, they pay me as a consultant, but the good news is I will never, in this company, not I or my employees, we will never weaponize a landlord against a tenant or a tenant against a landlord. In other words, I don't do business with slumlords, just like I don't go out there and violate rules and try to get people vouchers when you know damn well they shouldn't be doing that, okay? I have turned down many cases. In fact, I've given money back on numerous occasions because no, I or my company or its employees are going to commit fraud for anybody. And I don't take on trash cases. Okay, we get clowns all the time call my office. It's like they're collecting things. They've already got a free corn dog. They've got a free food stamp card. Now they want to get a voucher, but they don't have a justified cause. Look, I didn't pull up the back of the potato wagon, and we're not going to participate in that. You got a legitimate reason. You got a family, a disability. You're a senior. You're a veteran. And you got a real cause, our company's happy to work with you. And the last thing I'm going to mention here, guys, is we have one company policy when it comes to clients and relationships. And it's written in our contract. If you have ever abused a child, a pet, a woman, or a senior, we will not do business with you, okay? Don't even waste your money trying to contact me. I will not help you in any way. In fact, if it wasn't unethical, I would probably try to figure out a way to destroy it, because for as many reasons I can be good at finding people housing, I can also alert housing authorities and others. So I do have principles. Now, the only person that I will consider in that circumstance is sometimes in domestic cases, because I know how men and women can be. They don't always tell the truth, but logic be said, I don't deal with any clients. I won't accept any clients that have abused animals, pets, women, and children. Okay. Last questions are going out. Oregon Coast, Awaken One. I'm having all kinds of problems, technical problems, it looks like. Well, it's okay. I have technical problems. Like right now, my lips are having technical problems. In LO, does Section 8 have bonds over the participants? If so, do they inform if the participants about it? If the housing authority members haven't changes everyone have. I don't. They don't bond. No. This look. First of all, the housing authority is operating with federal dollars. They're not bonding anybody. Or maybe I don't understand the context of your question. Okay, so I'd say reach out to my office at some point, and I'll try to answer that if I can. I just need to get a little more information. Guys, you guys give me one-liners, and when you look at it the way I do, you watch me for an hour and 10 minutes speak on everything from federal law, code of federal regulation, policies, and procedures without taking a breath. Now, only a person that knows an immense amount about the system can do that. But that's not what I'm trying to bring to light here. What I'm trying to bring to light is you guys and your ability to ask a 5-word sentence. Boy, what I think most of you fail to realize is it's so open-ended, many of the answers I can give, because there's so many things that could play out that could be considered, okay? So I'm not trying to cop out on this. I'm just saying that you see how convoluted the system is. When you ask me a question, it's really hard to give a straight answer. I've told clients, look, I'm not trying to dodge you. I'm not trying to prevent from being straight with you, but literally the answer is going to be convoluted because that's how it's set up, okay? All right, so Oregon Coast Awaken One, amen to that. Oops, sent that fast. I live in the Bay Area. All right, well, San Fran, Frisky Minx. How do I communicate with the HA? Voicemails, emails never get the response. Best way to keep the boys and girls on their feet at the PHA or Public Housing Authority is a letter with a tracking number. That way, you can prove that they've received your communication, and at that point, they have a fiduciary or legal response. They have a legal cause to answer your letter or response. Okay. Well, guys, I got to wrap it up. I'm getting tired here. It's been an hour. I'm shocked I even made it that far. Normally it's a half hour, but you guys kept me motivated. I was trying to keep y'all motivated, and I was trying to unwind you guys after that last video. I didn't realize that discussing dissolving HUD and other things was going to create such a dramatic effect. That was never my goal. I think that I wanted to make sure that I've always viewed this as trying to give genuine information to possibilities. I didn't expect you guys to go off the deep end. That video has received over 60,000 views in just a week. And it brought in a lot of people that I don't necessarily wanted in my channel. People became extreme. They were saying extreme things. That's never been the goal of my channel. It's been to empower, to educate, not to talk about fancy topics. Like if I wanted to be a 12-year-old and spray paint my hair and ride my bicycle up a roof for 1 million views, I'd do so. Largely, this channel does not receive an immense amount of views, but that video sure shit did. And I'm still surprised at that. So it'll be a long time for we talking about anything spicy, guys. So go enjoy your day. We'll see you in a couple of days, guys. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye for now.